Sapiens Summary by Yuval Noah Harari. The History of Humankind and Powerful Lessons. Since the dawn of time, humans have carried a deep restlessness, a relentless quest for meaning and power. But have you ever stopped to think about how a seemingly fragile creature like Homo sapiens managed to become the planet's dominant species, while physically much stronger animals were left behind? This is the initial tension that grabs your attention, the feeling that despite our vulnerability, we've been able to shape the course of human history, and it's precisely in this fragility that our strength lies. Get ready, because this summary of Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens will reveal how we evolved from small groups of hunter-gatherers to masters of empires, creators of money, founders of religions, and today, architects of technologies capable of redesigning life itself. If you're looking to understand the present and glimpse the future, this is the knowledge that can transform how you see the world. And before we dive into this incredible journey, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because here you'll find the most powerful summaries of books that are changing the lives of millions. Initially, we were far from imagining the impact our choices would bring. The so-called cognitive revolution was the first major leap. Around 70,000 years ago, something happened within the human mind that set us apart from all other species. We began to create shared stories, myths, and beliefs that went far beyond immediate reality. This ability to imagine, and more importantly, to get many people to believe in the same stories, gave us unprecedented collective strength. Lions are strong individually, but they can't organize thousands of individuals around a cause. Sapiens could. With this capacity, the first forms of large-scale cooperation emerged, and that's what set us on a path to global dominance. The painful truth Harari reveals is clear. We live within narratives, and often we believe in them so much that we forget they are constructs. Money, religions, empires, all were born from this unique ability to tell compelling stories, and this brings a powerful warning. If all of our reality is sustained by shared beliefs, to what extent are we truly free? What differentiates your life today from that of 130,000 years ago is less about biology, and much more about the narratives you've chosen to believe. Moving forward, we entered the agricultural revolution, another landmark for humanity. At first glance, it seemed like a victory. We stopped wandering in search of food and began to cultivate the land. But Harari challenges us with an uncomfortable idea, a true hook for reflection. Was this revolution truly progress, or merely a gilded cage? Wheat domesticated humans more than humans domesticated wheat. Before, we were nomads, free, with a varied diet and less physical labor. Afterward, we became tied to the land, planting, harvesting, and bearing the burden of a grueling routine. The promise of abundance transformed into the constant pain of toil, disease, and inequality. This is a lesson that echoes even today. Often, what appears to be progress can hide new forms of slavery. Agriculture allowed for the emergence of the first cities, population concentration, and consequently, the creation of centralized power systems. Empires were born from this process. To keep so many people united, it was necessary to create new, more complex, and comprehensive narratives. That's where organized religions come in, not just as a form of faith, but as systems of social order, capable of legitimizing hierarchies, sustaining empires, and controlling entire populations. Optimized Insight's Sapiens' strength isn't in muscles, but in the ability to create collective stories. Money, religions, and empires are narratives that shape reality. What appears to be progress can turn out to be a disguised prison. And that's just the beginning. Because if the agricultural revolution brought us stability while simultaneously imprisoning us, the next great transformation would be even more impactful. What would happen when humanity decided to look into the unknown and challenge its own ancient beliefs? Over time, human curiosity led us to cross the next frontier, the scientific revolution, which began about 500 years ago. This was the turning point that redefined humanity's destiny. Unlike religious or mythological narratives, science brought a new proposition: to acknowledge our own ignorance and seek answers through observation, experimentation, and constant doubt. This was an unprecedented leap in history, because until then we believed we had all the answers in sacred texts or ancestral traditions. Now, we began to admit that we didn't know and that we could learn more. This mindset of intellectual humility transformed into power, because knowledge began to accumulate at an exponential rate. This new paradigm opened the door for extraordinary advancements. Medicine prolonged life. Physics expanded the horizons of the universe. Technology brought tools that once seemed impossible, but alongside these advancements rose another central pillar of modernity: capitalism. Harari shows that science and capitalism walked hand in hand, mutually feeding each other. Major scientific projects needed funding, and the capitalist system provided the necessary resources. On the other hand, science drove innovations that opened new markets, creating a continuous cycle of growth. However, this marriage between science and capitalism also brought profound dilemmas. Capitalism, while creating wealth and progress, also established a relentless logic of mass consumption and production. This is where the most incisive critique comes in. Never before in history have so many people lived so immersed in the incessant desire to buy, accumulate, and consume. This is the engine that drives the modern economy, but also the root of many contemporary ailments. Because if in the past survival depended on planting and harvesting, today's psychological survival seems to depend on possessing, displaying, and comparing oneself. And here arises the question Harari poses as an essential hook to capture attention. Has this model truly brought us happiness? The promise was clear, but reality shows that despite economic growth and the abundance of products, many people remain dissatisfied, anxious, and searching for a greater meaning. Consumption might fill the void momentarily, but soon the feeling of lack returns, like a hunger that is never satisfied. At this point in the narrative, it's impossible not to connect this reflection with the lives of those watching. How many times have you believed that a new phone, new clothes, or a new car would solve your dissatisfaction, only to realize a short time later that you were already desiring something else? This cycle of desires is the engine of modern capitalism, and understanding this is an essential step to regaining control of your own life. If this reflection has resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel now, because here we always bring content that not only informs but transforms. Optimized insights. The scientific revolution began when we started to admit our ignorance. Science and capitalism formed a powerful alliance that changed the world. Mass consumption promised happiness, but generated anxiety and emptiness. And this brings us to the next crucial point. If science and capitalism transformed our way of life, one universal question remained: how to unify such diverse peoples? In an increasingly connected world, the unification of humanity is one of the most fascinating chapters in our history, because it shows how such diverse peoples, scattered across continents and cultures, eventually formed global systems that connect us even today. Harari highlights that three main forces acted in this process: money, universal religions, and empires. Money was perhaps the most powerful language ever invented. Unlike words, which change from one region to another, or laws, which vary according to each government, money became a universal language of value. Two strangers, without speaking the same language or sharing the same culture, can trust each other because both believe in the same piece of paper or the same number on a screen. This abstract trust, built around something that has no intrinsic value, is what keeps the global economy functioning. The brutal truth Harari reveals here is that money is one of the greatest collective fictions, yet also one of the most indispensable, and there's no escaping it. Universal religions also played an essential role. While ancient religions were local, tied to a specific people and their gods, religions like Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism emerged with the proposition of reaching all humanity. They created shared value systems that transcended borders, offering not only spiritual faith, but also a moral order that allowed distant communities to unite. Once again, we see the power of collective narratives shaping concrete realities. And finally, empires. Although often remembered for oppression and violence, empires were also responsible for connecting cultures, establishing trade routes, and creating networks of knowledge that span centuries. From Mesopotamia to Rome, from China to European colonization, empires served as structures that expanded ideas, technologies, and institutions, albeit at the cost of enormous inequalities and suffering. This triad, money, religions, and empires, was the cornerstone of human unification. And here's a powerful hook. If we were capable of creating such comprehensive systems that connected billions of people, aren't we today facing a new form of unification, even more subtle and powerful, guided by technology and the flow of digital information? Optimized insights. Money is the universal language that connects strangers and sustains global economies. Universal religions created common values and transcended borders. Empires were drivers of unification, despite the pain and inequality they caused. But this story doesn't end there. Because after consolidating the unification of humanity, the big question would arise: how to deal with the pursuit of happiness. Amidst so many material achievements and global systems, after analyzing how humans conquered the planet, created empires, invented money, and unified humanity under common narratives, an inevitable question arises: has all of this made us happier? Harari's answer is one of the book's most provocative points. Despite all the progress, the abundance of goods, and unprecedented longevity, happiness remains an unfulfilled promise. The great pain revealed here is that throughout history, humans have lived chasing illusions of well-being. Hunter-gatherers had a simpler life, but with fewer constant worries and a more direct relationship with nature. We, the moderns, surrounded by technology and consumption, often live anxious, stressed, and dissatisfied. Harari shows that the human mind is shaped by biological mechanisms that keep us always wanting more. The so-called happiness set point means that even after great achievements, we quickly return to the same level of satisfaction. This is a powerful shock. It doesn't matter if you live in a hut or a mansion. The human mind tends to get used to conditions and seek something beyond. Therefore, we often associate happiness with external achievements, when, in reality, it is much more linked to how we interpret and experience the world. The existential void of modernity comes precisely from the excess of possibilities, combined with an ever-dissatisfied mind. Here's an essential hook for the audience. How many times have you believed that achieving that goal, buying that item, or getting that promotion would finally bring you peace? And then, a short time later, the feeling of emptiness returned? This is the trap many fall into, and recognizing it is the first step to escaping it. This is the climax of the video, and that's why I reiterate the invitation. If this content is opening your mind and bringing powerful reflections, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now, because here we always bring transformative summaries that help you see the world with new eyes. Optimized insights. Happiness hasn't increased in proportion to human progress. The mindset point keeps us always wanting more. The modern void comes from an excess of possibilities and constant dissatisfaction. But Harari doesn't stop at analyzing the past or present. He goes further, making us confront the future, showing that humanity's next chapter might be the most challenging of all. After all, if until now we've shaped stories and systems, now we're beginning to shape life itself. If up until now history has shown how Homo sapiens conquered the planet through narratives, revolutions, and global systems, Harari warns us that we are entering unexplored territory. The future of humanity could be defined by biotechnology and artificial intelligence, forces that are giving us unprecedented power, the power to reprogram life itself. For the first time, we're not just adapting the world around us, but directly altering the codes of biology. Biotechnology allows us to alter genes, create artificial organisms, and even dream of the possibility of overcoming death. The promise is tempting, but the pain is evident. How far can we go without losing the essence of what it means to be human? Who will have access to these technologies? The risk of creating a new divide between a biological elite and the rest of humanity is real, and this dilemma is already before us. In parallel, artificial intelligence redefines the concept of work, learning, and even consciousness. Machines are becoming capable of learning on their own, making decisions, and in some cases, surpassing human performance. This opens up unimaginable possibilities, but also generates a deep fear that we will be replaced, discarded, or controlled by systems that we ourselves created. These advancements raise questions that go beyond science. They are ethical, philosophical, and existential questions. If the basis of all human history was the ability to create collective narratives, what happens when we start creating artificial lives and intelligences that might not share our beliefs? Are we facing a new cognitive revolution, much more powerful and unpredictable than the first? Harari concludes with a provocation that is also a call to reflection. For the first time, the next stage of evolution is not being driven by natural selection, but by our own hands. And this means that every choice today directly shapes tomorrow. The future won't just be about survival, but about deciding what kind of humanity we want to build. Optimized insights. Biotechnology gives humans the power to reprogram life. Artificial intelligence redefines work, learning, and consciousness. The future of humanity depends on the ethical choices made today. And so we come to the end of this summary of Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, a book that not only narrates the history of humanity, but challenges each of us to think about what it means to be human and what path we want to follow. If this content has helped you expand your view on the past, present, and future, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone you believe also needs to reflect on these questions. We have many other summaries that will transform your way of thinking, and we invite you to continue this journey with us.